I think I might have just watched the most painfully awkward interview that has ever existed. I don't know about you, but I remember the GameStop short squeeze back in 2021. It was pretty cool to witness, and everyone came together, the stock shot up to hundreds of dollars a share, billboards across New York City supported the movement. It was pretty much a once in a lifetime experience. Even if something similar were to happen again, it would never have the same shock factor that the GameStop squeeze had. So many people heard about it. I was about 2 years into liking stocks and looking at the stock market, and I had some of the last people that I would have ever expected to be interested in stocks asking me if I've seen GameStop. I got pretty into rooting for the short squeeze, I can't lie to you. I was caught up with the entire thesis. I may or may not have gotten AMC tattooed on my leg, and I really wanted to see another meme stock run. That day never came, but I kept tabs on both GameStop and AMC ever since that day, just in case. And then last week, I saw the headline that GameStop was looking to buy eBay. Now, in just a few clicks, you can go online and you can see what the market cap of both GameStop and eBay is. And if you don't know, market cap is just a fancy term for what the stock market values a company at. The market cap for GameStop is sitting around 10 billion, and the market cap for eBay is sitting around 50 billion. Now, if the proposed acquisition were the other way around and eBay was looking to buy GameStop, it would make a little more sense. But GameStop buying eBay? How is that going to work? It goes without saying that this created a lot of questions. And on Monday, on May 4th, CNBC was kind enough to bring GameStop CEO Ryan Cohen on for an interview discussing the potential acquisition. Now, for some context, CNBC is more of a blue chip enjoyer, not so much a meme stock degenerate. In the past, they haven't said the most bullish things about GameStop, and Mr. CEO Ryan Cohen isn't the biggest CNBC fan because of this. But you would think that for this moment, sometimes you just have to put your differences aside to provide some good insight for the shareholders. So when I saw this interview come out, I was excited to see them talk about the headline. But little did I know that the next 16 minutes would be so awkward, and just having the interview up on my screen just made me want to leave the room. I could tell in the first 15 to 20 seconds of the video that this was going to be painfully awkward.
The big deal news of the day, GameStop offering to buy eBay for $56 billion. The stocks are both up big in the last month. In the pre-market, CEO Ryan Cohen saying that combined company will be a real competitor to Amazon. And joining us right now live and exclusively is the man himself, Ryan Cohen. Good morning, and thank you for joining us.
Morning.
You know, I feel like most CEOs that go on CNBC open it up with, a little bit of a warmer intro and, say thanks for the time or something like that. But this guy just gave him a morning, and that was it. So they start off by asking why he even wants to acquire eBay, what's the idea and what's the strategy behind it, and he gives a pretty genuine answer. It's a little dry, but he still states the facts. He says how eBay has a big e-commerce platform, and GameStop wants to leverage its physical locations and their, focus on collectibles to just leverage that and expand their company. An interesting note is that the goal is to compete with Amazon, which is kind of crazy because Amazon is a big guy, and even eBay doesn't come close to comparing to Amazon. If we're talking just comparing when selling, trading cards, collectibles, games, stuff like that, maybe, but Amazon as a whole, good luck. So then they go on to ask if they've started talking to eBay, if there's any type of negotiations in place, and Ryan gives him pretty much nothing to work with, and he just hits him with,
No, we're just starting.
The CNBC host Andrew Sorkin can already kind of tell which way this is gonna go, and he lets out a nervous laugh pretty early on. I'll give him credit because he does try to dig a little bit throughout the interview, but Ryan really doesn't give him anything to work with. Now, he has to ask the obvious question of how does GameStop, a smaller company, try to acquire eBay, a much larger company? Now, Ryan, I don't know if he's just trying to play the game with the guy or what, but he gives him like the worst possible answer you could really give him here.
It's on our website. It's half cash, half stock, but the details are on our website.
Now, I'm just going to start a counter of how many times Ryan Cohen says it's on our website, so we'll start that off at 1. And since Andrew didn't really get a great answer out of him, he tries to dig a little. I'll give him some respect. He does try to dig a little to get a better answer, so he writes out the numbers for Ryan.
I think we can start with the idea that the market cap of GameStop is, call it, $11 billion. You have $9 billion on your balance sheet. Arguably, if you're providing effectively all of your stock, and then the cash that gets you to 20. You have this letter from TD. That's another 20. We're now at 40, but we're still off by, call it 16.
Yeah, we'll see what happens.
So he tries to write it out for the guy, and all he gets is a, we'll see what happens. So all he can do is just let out another nervous laugh because he just really can't get anywhere with this guy. He gives it one more swing.
I hear you. I understand that. I'm just trying to understand where the rest of the money would come from.
It's half cash, half stock.
And he doesn't really get an answer. Half cash, half stock. But he just ran through it, that the half cash, half stock doesn't really equal to enough money to meet that 56 billion that they're proposed to be offering. So another CNBC anchor, Miss Becky, comes on and she's asking the same thing, and they're just running into a wall. She tries to explain that the $20 billion check, along with their $9 billion in cash on their balance sheet, along with their company's valuation of $11 billion, still doesn't add up to be enough to buy eBay for $56 billion. And Mr. Cohen's just telling them he doesn't understand the question. It reminds me of that scene in SpongeBob with Patrick and Man Ray. You know what I'm talking about. So he pretty much just brushes off the logic of it, says, yeah, we have the ability to get the deal done, and he hits him with the details are on our website. So a third anchor, Melissa, comes on and she just changes the topic because they're just giving up on that question. And she asks like what the vision is for the company. She points out how them competing with Amazon would be pretty tough because Amazon has a whole logistics hub and all this other stuff that they're doing to make their business really thrive, and GameStop and eBay would be kind of confined to what they have now. And he kind of dodges that one too. He pretty much just says that GameStop could be a larger business and, it should be doing worse than it is, but it's making a few bucks, and it could just be way better if they combine with eBay. And then they bring on anchor number 4, and this is where it starts to get a little heated because he kind of challenges Ryan and he says, hey, GameStop's earnings have shrunk over the last 4 years. How do you prove that you know how to grow a consumer business? And this one probably struck a chord because this is when Ryan gets a little hostile and he's asking them, weren't you the one who were calling for GameStop's demise? And look at us now. We're turning profitable. We're doing better. We come full circle back to Mr. Andrew and he asks basically again how it's going to work. Ryan hits him with a quick, did you read our website? And he says, yeah, but he's just trying to get the insight for the people watching. Ryan tells him GameStop is a good blueprint of how to do things and they can cut a lot of costs with eBay, and even if GameStop takes on a bunch of leverage with the acquisition, it'll be able to make a lot more money in the long term, which will be able to pay down that debt. They hit Ryan with a few more awkward questions that don't really go anywhere, but Andrew brings up a interesting question at the end of the interview.
Given the rationale for the transaction that you've laid out, which, by the way, I've heard relatively good things about just the idea that, it's interesting to combine the idea of eBay and a GameStop, just as a concept. How would you feel if eBay called you up and said, we'd like to pursue a transaction with you and we would like to buy GameStop at a, call it 20% premium to your stock price? In that case, it would be, a different type of deal.
I have the same obligation to my shareholders as eBay has to theirs. And so, if something like that were to happen, then I have the same obligation to maximize value for my shareholders as eBay has.
So, to no one's surprise, he doesn't really get anywhere with that question. Ryan just gives him a pretty CEO answer there, but it is an interesting thought. Because if the thesis of the GameStop followers is true, that there are all these duplicate shares out there and the company's actually shorted way more than 100%, I wonder what would happen to it if eBay bought it. I don't know where this is gonna go. After this interview dropped, GameStop tanked and eBay, it didn't really do anything crazy, but it's interesting to think about what might happen over the coming months. Ryan was talking about it happening within this year. We'll see about that. Hopefully it brings some excitement and GameStop doesn't just get diluted into the ground.